Bonjour, everybody. Hi. Good morning. This is Neshi here at Star Nations Organization's main fan page here on Facebook. That is a fan page that covers just about everything that we do in Star Nations. That's including, the Star Nations magazine, Star Nations radio network live stream shows here on Facebook, and also the Academy and the publishing. So everything Star Nations, right? Good morning. Good morning. I live in Tomah, Wisconsin, and I have to say that this spring, we are having gorgeous mornings. It is sunshine and blue skies again today. Gorgeous out, and I can't help it, but it makes me smile because we don't normally get this kind of weather day after day, and so it makes me happy. So welcome to the energy card draw for the day. I do this every morning regardless. I had started this quite a long time ago, and then I started sharing some of the information from the card draw on Instagram, on our business account on Instagram. And about 2 weeks ago or so, I had decided that maybe our Star Nations community here on Facebook would enjoy the information as well, and talk a little bit about the meaning of the card and what that could bring us on a day like today, right? So that's why I started these live streams, sharing some information. So every morning when I sit down to do the card draw, I take a couple deep breaths. You get centered, you get connected, and I call in my spiritual team, the whole team. There's quite a few of my spiritual team: guides, guardians, teachers, allies, the whole gamut. Because my intention for the card draw is to be shown the energy that is important to know for that day, and information that I can share with others through Instagram and now Facebook. And so I do that every morning. Good morning, Elise. You got your coffee or your tea? I do. I also need to order my Star Nations travel mug because I don't have one of those. Good morning, Margaret. I have, coffee mugs, that's for sure, but, and I don't normally walk up here. I could. It's a very short walk. It's about a block and from the main house. But I usually bring up one of the ATVs or my car, which is also electric. So that's because sometimes I got stuff I got to bring up or stuff I have to take back. And so anyway, that's what's the travel mug, so I can put it in the car or in the ATV. See, Margaret's good. You're drinking water, because what did we learn the other day from Polly Joe when she was talking about water? Was that last night? That kind of runs together for me. And she was saying that unfortunately coffee doesn't satisfy the amount of water that we need every day, right, to be hydrated. But, I have one cup usually a day, sometimes two, not very often, but anyway, I'm going to order my travel mug, my Star Nations travel mug today or tomorrow. I have to make time to do that, to get on the Cafe Press site. And so if you ever want to get some Star Nations swag stuff, the travel mugs, the coffee mugs, the mouse pads, what else do we have out there? Journals with the Star Nations logo on it. That's where you go. Just go to Cafe Press and do the search for Star Nations Organization, and our page will come up. Or I could put the link in the comments section. Now that would be a good idea, right? So today is Thursday, May 17th, and another gorgeous day here. Another gorgeous day. In fact, when Margaret's saying I had coffee earlier. Most of us do. You know, I try to get my coffee in when I'm actually having a little bit of breakfast, and my breakfast doesn't happen until my mom is situated for the morning, and I usually run up, take a shower, come back down, and grab some breakfast, and then I have my coffee. I usually have my cup somewhere before 11 o'clock. Not that that has, you know, a certain time frame or anything like that. It's just I don't drink it really, really early in the morning. That's when I do the hydration. I drink a big glass of water to hydrate after, you know, it's kind of like breaking the fast, right? So I have a big glass of water. Sometimes I have lemon in it, sometimes I don't. Right away in the morning. And then after that is usually breakfast and then the cup of coffee with breakfast if I'm lucky. Usual routine. So are you interested in today's card draw? It's a little bit of a repeat, a little bit, because we've already had this card before. And it is the Warbonnet again, which means advance. Okay? So that's the first card that flew out of the deck. And the second card that came along with it is the Sweatlodge. And I know these are backwards, and I apologize for that, but that's how the camera thing goes unless I flip it around. And the Sweatlodge is about purification, and we haven't gotten this card yet. And so here's the artwork on it. If you've ever attended a Sweatlodge, you know that it's a round structure like this. In Wisconsin, in the woodland Native Americans east of the Mississippi, this is what we call a wigwam or a lodge. The wigwams are smaller and round like this. Lodges are a little bit bigger, and they're more oblong than they are round. And the lodges are meant to house quite a few people, and usually are set up for like ceremonies. So that's the difference between the two. Now, you know, I have to say that I thought, really, do we have to do Warbonnet again? What in there is important for us to know about that we didn't talk about the last time? And if I culled it a little closer, you can see that the colors in the image also are the medicine wheel colors, but they also have the blue color in there. And the blue color with those of us, that indigenous people who live on the east side of the Mississippi, the road that travels east to west is the blue road or the black road. And the blue road is about spirit. And it depends on where you go and what belief system is interpreting the medicine wheel. The blue road is about our life lessons, and that's where we gain our knowledge. That's the road where our soul chose to experience a physical life. And then what we do is we take all of our experience, the wisdom that we've gained, along with all of our gifts and talents, and then we walk the red road. And the red road goes from south to north, and that is taking all of our gifts and our wisdom and our talents to our community, to share it with our community, to help, to be of service. That's what the red road is for those of us east of the Mississippi. That interpretation. There's many interpretations to the medicine wheel. Through the filters, the lenses of our individual geographical area, our topography. And so when you're studying the medicine wheel, you really have to kind of ask the question or listen to what is being shared and how it's being shared. Because even the colors will be in different locations, different power animals or totems for the cardinal directions. And so none of it's wrong. It's just in the interpretation. Okay? Elise says, I have a lot of trees in my back acres, and I'm going to build one this summer. Oh, good for you. Good for you. And at least try, right? There's in Ho-Chunk, in the Ho-Chunk language, I'm trying to remember, it's called a Hochaka. I think that's how it's pronounced, a Hochaka. And that is, it's not a sweat lodge. A Hochaka is not a sweat lodge. A Hochaka is a wigwam, is kind of a summer dwelling, a dwelling. I think that's a beautiful picture. You know, my dad, who crossed over, he transitioned, walked on. It was Labor Day weekend of 2010. And he had a war bonnet. He was a World War II vet, and it was given to him by my grandfather a long time ago. And he would wear it. We used to be in parades all the time. And so, and he was a horseman. He knew a lot about horses. And so he would always ride his horse in the parade. And we would normally be like on a flatbed trailer with drummers, and we'd dance, depending on what parade it was. Sometimes we'd dance on the flatbed. Other times we'd dance on the street and walk in the parade. I think the biggest parade we did was going from Milwaukee, downtown Milwaukee, to the outskirts when Al Ringling Circus would go from start their summer season here in Wisconsin, because in Baraboo is one of the homes of the Al Ringling Brothers Circus, and it's called Clown Town, Baraboo, Wisconsin. No, really, they have a university there that teaches about being a clown. So we'd call it Clown Town. It was a small town close to us, within, I think, 20, 30 minutes from where I lived. Anyway, the parade, my dad would be on the horseback, and he'd have his headdress on, his war bonnet. And then he'd wore it when we were working down at Stand Rock Indian Ceremonial. He was the head usher. And so he would be kind of directing the large groups of people, you know, in which section to be seated in. Those of us who were ushers. I was a dancer, and then I went to ushering. I think I was 16 or 17 when I switched over to ushering, babysitting 2,000 people a night. And so my dad would wear his war bonnet on Saturday nights. Why? One, people love taking pictures of anybody in full regalia, right? But it also gave him, I don't want to call it credibility, but that's the only word that kind of comes to mind, authority. Because when you're trying to address 2,000 people without a microphone, you need to get their attention, right? And so whenever he had his war bonnet on, I tell you, he could move 2,000 people in whatever direction they needed to move in. And so he'd wear it on Saturday nights. My oldest brother is a Vietnam veteran, and he also has a war bonnet. And actually his war bonnet has the long trailers. It goes from the nape of the neck down to the heels on the back. And so on both sides there's eagle feathers. And so he has the full bonnet with the trailer, and that's because of what he did in Vietnam, and surviving, not just surviving there to come home, but surviving once he got home, because war changes people, and the things he had to do there, and so he came back to heal, and the PTSD. Of course, it wasn't called that then. Not many people even talked about it. I think he came back in, I want to say 74 or 75, and he earned every one of those feathers in the war bonnet. And Jamie Sams, what she writes about the war bonnet is that that you earn those feathers. And in the ancient days, the ancient ones, the old ones, it was usually through, dealing with an enemy. Usually, it was in battle, but many times it took more courage to count coup. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard that word, as C-O-U-P, coup. And it's really going as close as possible to your enemy without killing them or without being killed. And sometimes it's even more brave, more courage to ride up to your enemy and touch them and not get hurt, or not to hurt someone else, but to actually touch them and then ride away. So counting coup is really much more, took much more courage to do that in the old days. And so when warriors were meant to protect the people, protect their families. And so it wasn't necessarily about violence or aggression. It was really about protecting your family, protecting your home. And so when they would earn the Warbonnet, it really was about courage and bravery, leadership. In modern day, and we talked about this the last time, is having maybe a updated definition of what a warrior is. Because a warrior isn't necessarily somebody who goes out these days an act of courage or bravery is to take another person's life. But maybe it is more about the ability to gather the courage and the bravery to go up to someone or something that you don't really hold in a high esteem, to get them to understand your point of view, or for you to protect your people, your family members, your community. And so when I think about that, when I talk about that, I think about activists. I think about people who stand up, to say something to an elected official, that they are here to work for us. To stand up and say no to corporations that do the clear cutting of trees or polluting the water or strip mining, those kinds of things. It takes a lot of courage to do that. Good morning, Jill. Good morning, Jill. Let's see, I'm a little behind here. Okay, so Elisa's saying, is there a place I can learn how to build a sweat lodge the correct way? Well, there is, except that the sweat lodge is one of the 7 rites that came with the Buffalo Calf Woman that she brought to the Osheti-Sakoan people, the Great Sioux Nation. And it was shared to other tribal nations along the way, right? And so it is a very sacred structure. And the ceremony, the sweat lodge, or what goes on in there during I don't know. Elise, have you been to the sweat lodge? I don't remember. So this is stuff that you probably already know. But when you're talking about a sweat lodge, you're talking about, it's just not learning about the sweat lodge. It's everything that leads up to the sweat lodge. Okay, it's about learning about having a chanupa, a pipe, a sacred pipe, and knowing how to use the pipe and what the pipe is used for. It's about learning about the relatives, nature, the stone people, and what they do for us in the sweat lodge. It is about the sacred songs. And who sings those sacred songs in the sweat lodge. There's a lot of things that lead up to actually having a sweat lodge. It's just not a structure. The structure itself, there's special trees that are used, usually willow, for a lot of reasons. One, depending on the nation, willow represents love because of its flexibility. And to be able to harvest, there's certain ceremonies in the harvesting of the number of willow trees that you need, and in the tying of the willow trees together. And because it's the bones, the skeletal structure of the inipi, of the sweat lodge. So yes, you can learn, but you need to find somebody who will actually teach you that. And you're actually walking the path of a holy person, I don't want to use the word shaman, because the word shaman is actually a word that's brought to the United States from a different indigenous group of people, the Sami. And so in the indigenous language here in the United States, on Turtle Island, those people that do those kinds of spiritual work are holy people. They're medicine people, yes, but they're healers in a way that is different than, say, somebody who is a healer that uses herbs, plants. And so there's a lot of training that goes with it. It's just not the actual building of a sweat lodge. Now, you can build a wigwam, a hochika. You can do that, because that is like a dwelling, a home, that has the significance of the sacredness is being a part of nature, and learning about the willow, and learning about how these go together, right? And to be able to experience what it's like to maybe even sleep in a hochika. That's completely different. You can do that, no problem. Is finding somebody who is willing to teach you how many of the willows do you need, how to strap them together, or whether or not you're going to use more modern day strapping, or if you're going to use something from nature to hold everything together, right? So I think you have to make a decision. What kind of structure are you going to build? And you can do either one. The sweat lodge is really making a conscious decision to walk your path as a holy person, as a medicine person. That is entirely possible. You just have to find the right person to be your mentor, your teacher, and which tradition are you going to be trained in. The tradition of east of the Mississippi or west of the Mississippi? Are you going to be trained in Eastern medicine or Western medicine? And I'm not talking medical people. I'm talking about the direction. And so, if you have the feeling in your heart that you need to build a sweat lodge, then, I would contact somebody that, once you determine if you're going to be Eastern medicine or Western medicine, I'm sure we could find some contact people for you to ask, and in the asking of that, there's actually a ceremony or a tradition with that. A lot of times, many times you're selected to walk that path. An elder may come to you and invite you to a ceremony or to do something within that belief system. If you make let's say you had a dream about it, and Spirit chose you, then what you do is you're working with Spirit and asking them to help you to find the mentor or the teacher that's right for you and right for the path that you're going to be walking, to fulfill your soul contract, and to please help me meet that person, that other two-legged, and who's going to be my teacher, my mentor. And then Then you wait. Then you wait for spirit to do the lining up of the synchronicities and for that person to enter your life. So I hope that makes sense, Elise. She says, thanks, I know it's sacred and I want to do it correctly. Have made willow furniture before. Oh, that's good. Well, then you have connection to the willow tree then, And so it's always a possibility. Always. All right, so I wanted to share with you one more time about the Warbonnet and what Jamie Sams writes about the Warbonnet, because it's about advanced. She says, if the Warbonnet has appeared in your cards today, it's time to advance. Don't waste energy on going backward or staying in the doldrums. You are now able to move to the next step on the sacred path. Like a Warbonnet chief, you have earned the right to learn the next set of life mysteries. Take your medicine bundle and all the strength it represents and charge forward. The advance card can be on any level. Your spiritual, your physical, mental, and emotional healings are understood through life's experiences. You can now approach your destiny with every feather you have earned, marking your past victories, and see the destiny you have chosen emerging before you. Your medicine is strong and will allow the advancement you need at this time. So, to me, what was important about knowing about this energy from this card is about the advancement, and that all of the work that we have done in healing, facing our fears, facing our shadow self, doing the work so that we have soul growth, that the work that we've done is good, and that now we're in a position to take that next step forward, next step in that on that path, right? The next step of learning about how to master our gifts, whatever that is for you. See how it unfolds today. What comes up? It's by no mistake, Elise, that you're asking about how to build a sweat lodge, because it's a possibility that is your advanced, that's your next step. The poem that goes with the Warbonnet card, Jamie Sams writes, Warbonnet on the warrior clan, honors you have earned, eagle feathers, lofty thoughts, courage you have learned. Teach us of the forward thrust, advancing to the right, parley now, counsel fire, wisdom true and bright. So we've done our work, and now is the time to be able to take all of our experience and our gifts and go and take the next step, right? Now, I want to share a little bit about what Jamie Sams says about the Sweat Lodge. And the Sweat Lodge is about purification. Okay? The Sweat Lodge, she writes, the purpose is to purify the body, mind, and spirit so that the new sense of self may be present on the path. And if you've been to any of the ceremonies here at Star Nations, or anywhere else for that matter, many times you get smudged down before you get to go into the building, right? Or you get smudged down while you're in the building before we actually get started. And the reason for that is we want to go into the ceremony or into the sacred space as clean as possible. And clean meaning our auric field is clear, our mental thoughts are good thoughts, our emotions are of a higher vibration, love, joy, peace. You can sense the sacredness. And so you're taking care of all aspects of yourself, all the four bodies. And so you get smudged down. It's part of the purification. The sweat lodge also does that. Before you go into the sweat lodge itself, you get purified. The pipes are filled. The early songs are sung. And then when you're approaching the Inipi, the sweat lodge, is the doorway is low, and you're meant to crawl in, so that you're as close to Grandmother Earth as possible. It's about going back into the womb, really, and there's many ways of expressing the sweat lodge. It depends on which tribal nation is providing the sweat lodge, because there's lots of different belief systems around this. Okay, there's some very strong commonalities, but it also is very different depending on which nation belief system is providing the sweat lodge. Oh, Lise here. Jamie Sam writes that the sweat lodge is made from willow, and the willow tree is the tree of love in the Seneca tradition. And the reason why is because it bends with grace and does not break easily. And she also talks about the stone people. The stone people, even getting the stones, there's a special song to locate the stones that's going to be used in the sweat lodge. And the stones, they're record keepers. They keep the history of their experience here on Earth, because they grow and move so slowly that they see generation after generation after generation of the two-leggeds and those who have shorter lifespans than, say, the stones, okay? And so, and they're termed grandmother and grandfather because of their wisdom, the things that they've witnessed. And so when the stones are heated in a sacred fire, and that's built in a special way, that sacred fire, and the songs that go with that, the stones are heated, and they're brought into the Inipi in a very sacred, ceremonious way by a trained person. A fire tender, a firekeeper, will bring the stones in. And the stones, they say, is that when the water is put on them and the steam releases, is that they're actually releasing their knowledge to the people within the sweat lodge. So the sweat lodge is about purification, yes, but there's many layers to it. And you're in the dark. There's no windows. when they put the flap over the door, it is dark. And so your other senses, your intuition, the way you bring in spiritual information, information from spirit, is heightened, because you don't have your physical eyes to see with. You're seeing with your third eye. You're seeing with your heart. You're hearing with, as the Seneca say, the Onondaga say, with your thin ears. So you're hearing spirit. So the other thing that goes in the sweat lodge is the tobacco ties, the prayer ties. And that is a whole nother layer. You can do prayer ties for yourself, asking for prayers for yourself. You can do prayer ties for if someone's sick in your family and you'd like to offer the tobacco, and each one of the little bundles with the prayer ties, you can do that. And you can offer it for peace, world peace. You can pray for just about anything, right? And those prayer ties, the colors of each of the little bundles that has tobacco in it are the colors of the medicine wheel. And so when they're hung in the sweat lodge, the prayers are also released within that ceremony. So there's lots of different energy layers that go with that. This is one piece that she writes that I agree with, and I had to smile when I read it. She writes, in humbling ourselves and crawling through the opening to the purification lodge, we are asked to check our egos at the door. Since sacrifice originally meant to make sacred, Approaching every act of life in a sacred manner is the Native American way. The circular form of the Purification Lodge reminds us not to assign blame to others if they falter or fall, but rather to gently teach in loving kindness so that the circle of the sacred hoop may remain whole. Willow is our reminder of the cleansing love necessary for the growth to occur. I like that. And I so agree with her. That we have to check our ego at the door, and we go in as clean as possible into that ceremony. I'm going to show you the picture again. In the old days, the old ones, they would use, like buffalo hide or animal hides that had been cured to cover the sweat lodge. In modern time, we use canvas, something, not plastic. Don't ever use plastic. They use canvas, that's got that duck cloth, that's cotton. Sometimes they use like blankets. But you try to use, something that is more natural and doesn't have a lot of polyester in it. Yeah. All right. And so here's Jamie Sam. She writes, the Sweat Lodge card speaks of a need for purifying some aspect of your life. This cleansing can be gentle and healing if you are willing to approach it in a sacred manner. It may be time to cleanse negative thoughts or attitudes. From another point of view, if you have people pulling you down and stopping your forward movement, cleaning away the barriers is called for here. Whether the purification is of body, mind, emotions, attitudes, or spirit is for you to decide. The constant rule of the Sweat Lodge card is that of humility, and purification always makes way for new life force to enter. Remember that once the rust, she calls it, is removed, you may shine in your own right. So, when we have this card in combination with the Warbonnet card, to me that is telling me that in the purification, we have to really take a look at our own shadow self, right? And to shine our light into our own shadow, to see what healing needs to be done, what forgiveness could be done. It's about, remember I was talking about counting coup and how those feathers are actually put on, what those feathers are earned on that Warbonnet. And so when you're counting coup, you're going as close as possible to your enemy, as close as possible to that causes you fear, to touch it and to be able to survive it, right? And not to take the life of the other, but it's in the counting of the coup. And when we stand up and face ourselves, we're counting coup in a way, because we're facing our fears. We're facing that shadow part of us. We're changing how we think. We're changing our thoughts from maybe less than positive to more positive. We're changing our life, and then we're advancing. And I think that's the reason. That's the feeling I have from these two cards. Because we've done our work. They're saying that we've done our work and that we can advance. The purification card, the Sweat Lodge card, is telling us that when we do our work, we advance. When we face our shadow selves and we do the purification, we can advance. I like it. I don't know if that resonates with you guys. But what does feel good, keep, and what doesn't, just brush aside, and just keep what feels good, what resonates with you. Now, Jamie Sams writes the poem for the Sweatlodge card. Fire of purification, steam from sacred stones, prayer ties and tobacco meld with spirit songs. And that's so true. That's so true. All right, I'm going to get caught up here on... Oh, Janet Smith joined us. Hi, Janet, all the way from England. And that's how you live. That's true. Thank you, Jill. Someday, Jill writes, if it's acceptable to you, it'd be nice to see how you were taught to smudge with a feather, if you're willing. Oh, yeah, we could do that. Easy peasy. And Jill, she says, entered altered state in this card draw today, calling back experiences in the lodge, and you're gracious. Gracious. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. We can do the teaching how to smudge with a feather. I don't know if we would do that here on the morning card draw, or if we would do that as part of the academy group. It feels better, to me to do it in the academy group, because the card draw in the morning is really about getting information from spirit. What energy is most important for us to know for today, and how we can share it with others. And so I'm thinking that maybe the feather, the smudging with a feather, we could do on the academy page. And that way we could take what time we need to do that. It feels good. All right, so today, watch how the energy unfolds for you, and see how the information that we got from Spirit, how that fits in for you. It's gotten the unfolding of things. We've come to a point in Star Nations with the live stream shows that we really are doing more and more work with you to help you heal. I look at the 2 shows that Polly Jo does, the meditations that she leads for healing. Carl and Orchard Franklin, the shows that they have, the information that they're bringing to you. The last one was about meditation and understanding the fundamentals of meditation. It is not a practice, it is a way of life. And helping you to understand that, and being in Orchard leading a guided meditation, so that for those that may have issues with meditating, that they have the opportunity to learn maybe from a different perspective, because Orchard is coming from the perspective of the Coptic ministry, from those ancient teachings from Egypt. So that's a bit different. And I'm thinking of Connie Vauder, Sheer Vauder, Connie. Sorry, I missed your name there, Connie. She's coming from a Christian point of view, a Christian mystic point of view, and helping us to understand that path. And and Julie Hedges, with the tarot and with the astrology. So the information that we're sharing here with you from a Star Nations platform is really about helping you to really do that inner work, for you to look at the healings that you need to be able to advance, to move forward. And I like it. I like it a lot. And so I hope you do too. You do too. Hey, good morning, Rob. We're just finishing up. I'm just going to be wishing you guys a good Thursday as you move along with your day. And we'll see you tomorrow morning for the card draw at 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 Eastern. And we'll see what Spirit has to say tomorrow. Thank you so much for being with me this morning. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bama Mina. Until we see each other again.